Hello dear friends, thanks for joining me. This is Liz Wright from Liz at Home in South Africa, and today is Watercolor Wednesday yet again, and I'm excited to do an easy exercise with you. A few of the comments I've had are from people saying that they don't feel that they know how to watercolor and they would like to, and so I'm going to do a little easy exercise to use some brush control. So let's get to it. I have one of my new Arteza watercolor sketchbooks. This is a 5x5 inch acid-free natural linen bound watercolor book, but I don't think it's 100% cotton. I think it's sort of quite cost effective. It's an Arteza one, and I've tried it for gouache because it came in a set of 3, and I'm not going to use the first 2 pages. I'm going to start on this page, and I'm just going to put a cloth down on this side to protect the page and put my palette on top of the cloth, and I'm going to use this side here to do the exercise. And what I'm going to do is use my color wheel to find 3 analogous colors. Analogous means colors that go next to each other on the color wheel. And I've already got a blue in there and a green in my palette. So if you look from blue, you can go to blue, green to green. I'm going to see if I've got a nice blue-green in this paint set, and I have that. Phthalo turquoise is quite a nice blue-green. So that is this one over here. So I'm just going to, I have 2 jars of water here, and I have a paper towel to use to dry my brush on, and I'm just going to put a drop of water on there so it can start to activate. I'm going to put a drop of water on this blue. I think I'm going to need a bit more blue just now, and a drop of water on that green. And then I've got this stencil that I use for when I'm trying to do bokeh type of things in my coloring of circles, and I'm basically just going to draw with pencil very lightly some random circles here and there. I'm going to do some in different sizes. I'm going to do that one next to this one. Another one there, actually not doing the small ones right now. My way. This is just a small one I'm putting in here. Let's do a few small ones for interest's sake. There we are. So we've got lots and lots of circles. I'm just going to erase these circles I've drawn now so that there's only a light bit showing through that I can paint over. When you're using watercolor and you put watercolor paint over the graphite pencil, it actually sets the pencil on the paper, and sometimes because the watercolors are transparent, that pencil line shows through, and we don't always want. You could go over it in ink, in pen, and make it a pen and ink pattern, but I'm just going through this and then it will be enough for me to see, I think. Still a few more places. That are quite dark. So now, basically what we're going to do is we're going to start with one of these colors. I'm going to start with this blue. And I'm going to fill in some random circles. So I'm wetting my brush. I have my paper towel here. I'm going to this blue. I'm just making sure that there's something there. On my brush, I'm loading the brush. I'm pulling the brush off on the side. And I'm following the shape of that circle. And I'm going to fill it in just to practice doing the brush control. And if they're wonky, that's also all right. Going to do another one, and I'm just taking some of that paint off. So again, we're working with values here, and I'm doing this one the same blue, but with a lighter value, like we did when we did the mountains. I'm going to rinse some off and do another one here with the lighter value again. I'm not sure if you can hear people speaking in the background, but our neighbor has people around and they sound like they're having a good time and they're laughing. So I hope they're enjoying themselves. So now I'm going to move on to the green, and I'm rinsing my brush out. Just making sure it's clean, and then I'm going to activate that green, and I'm going to fill in this one. And now I'm going to fill this circle in here, which is running next to this blue one, and I want to create what's called a color bleed. So the watercolor paint likes water, and it always travels to where something is wet. This is still damp. Oops, I've just made a fingerprint in it. And when I touch this against there, I'm hoping that some of this color will bleed into that color and create an interesting moment. Let's see if anything happens with this non-cotton paper. It's not actually happening there, so I'm going to, while that's still quite wet, take some of this blue and go into this one here where they're overlapping, and that's creating a bit of a bleed. Can you see that? It's starting to creep in there and make some interesting patterns. This is not the right paper for the bleeds. Now I'm going to take some of this turquoise blue and I'm going to do another circle, perhaps of this one on the edge of the book. Doing this one here. And I'm just going to fill this page up with happy little circles of color and have fun while I'm doing it. And I would really suggest that you try doing an exercise like this, because it looks quite pretty when it's finished. One could add doodles to it if you wanted to. But you're going to be learning some brush control by doing it. And it's a fun exercise. You can also practice your values. I always forget that name, hence the hesitation. and practice your values. You can also try mixing some of these colors that are next to each other on the color wheel together. So I'm going to take this one's dark and I'm going to overlap that one there. And because this also shows you this technique, it's called glazing, when you go over when you basically layer with watercolor. Because the watercolor is mostly transparent, most colors are transparent, you can see a little bit of that circle there through this one. One needs to wait for the colors to dry to do that. Now I'm going to get some more green and do this one. I'm quite excited because we're thinking of having, well, we are planning to have, we've already got some solar panels on the roof, having some more put in, and we're going to have a thing called an inverter installed, which is like a battery that will hopefully help us when the power's out, so that we can still do things we need to. So this is now that's probably too pale. So I'm coloring that one in with water. Going to give it a minute or two. Made it a bit too wet. And then I'm going to drop some bits of green around the edge here and let them travel in there. So that's another fun thing to do in the circles, to make some of them look different. So let's take some of our turquoise again. I'm going to make it a lighter one. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Filling that in. And this time I'm going to allow that to absorb into the paper for a moment. That's fairly dry. That one's fairly dry. And I'm going to take this green. First of all, I'm going to do this here. Nope. Have to wait for that to dry a little bit more. Let's see if I can. I'm going to mix some of this with this blue and see what color we get. That's interesting. And do an overlapping circle here in this color. And that's still wet, so that's bled into there quite nicely. Can you see that color bleed? I like that. I think it's very pretty. Do another one in this color. I would love to hear in the comments from you guys if there's something you would like me to do. I was thinking of starting to do either another landscape or starting to do some flowers. Let me know whether you'd like that or not. So I'm going to take this blue here, quite watery, and drop that in here and create some interesting little things. This is dry, so taking this blue I'm going to do what's called glazing here, and you should see both layers. So that they shine through. Can you see that? There we are. That one's taking a while to soak in. I want a darker value of this blue. I think this was ultramarine blue here. To do it here. It's bit watery. Just dabbing some off on my paper, dabbing some more off on my paper because I put too much water on that. I'm going to do one in this here. I've extended it a bit so it's bigger, but that's going to make another glazing to show the transparency of the watercolors. It's a wonky circle. And this one's dried a bit more now, so I'm going to drop some of the green in there. So when I drop that in, I do a slightly more pigmented drops. You can see that doing its thing. And I'm going to mix, no, I think I'm going to mix that all up so it's now this interesting green. Just dabbing some off there, and I'm going to make this circle. Rinsing some of that off. So it's quite a light value. Maybe a bit wet for glazing. I should have been careful of my water, so I'm just drying my brush off and lifting some of the puddle. I just love this transparency of the watercolor. I think it's so beautiful. Probably need more greens, don't we? It's going to go here. See, for me to do this is complete relaxation because I don't have any requirement for the outcome. It doesn't need to look like anything. I'm just playing with my paints, playing with the colors, learning about how dry the wet one needs to be for the paint to bleed into it, what sort of value I need to get a good overlay, a good glazing, so that you can see, like those two I think are lovely. It's just so much fun. This is a circle here. And I'm using my brush, painting the top half of this one, and then I'm going to wet the brush, take that off, just take a bit of water off, and then so that it's not quite so pigmented, so it's a bit of a lighter value because the one underneath is very light, so that's not going to shine through. And I'm just extending my circle because I made a mess. Oh, this is going to turn into a very big circle. Looks like a semi-face with ears. Do one here. To fill that up. And I think I like that color. Another one here. And there I'm going to drop some more bits of green in while it's wet. This paper is actually not bad at all. Do one here, small one. this Arteza paper. I quite like it for a non-cotton paper. Just going to lift some of that water again. To do that, I dab it off on my paper towel and I go in there and spread it around a bit. And I'm going to do a last circle. Needs to have one here somewhere, I think. Shall we go green? I'm just drawing a random circle, freehand. And filling that in. Again, I've put too much water in. I'm rushing a little bit today, I think because I'm worrying about the power going out. And I've got quite a few pupils tomorrow, so I'm scared I won't get the video out. So I don't want to leave you guys in the lurch. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed watching this and enjoyed watching me playing with my paints with you guys, and I hope that you'll give this little exercise a try. It's really fun and I think it ends up looking quite pretty. Thanks. So you could write something on there if you wanted to, or you could just play with it and fill it up with even more circles if you wanted to, or anything you felt like, or just leave it as it is. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a happy, colourful week. Bye-bye now.